All right, guys, this one's coming from Reuters. Now this one's amazing. I love this one. This one's beautiful. Okay. Big U.S. firms hold 2.1 trillion overseas to avoid taxes. U.S. study or taxes study. Really? Why don't they have the? Jesus Christ. All right. Well, here's the situation. They had originally had Apple's headquarters here. So let me just read this. The 500 largest American companies hold more than 2.1 trillion in accumulated profits offshore to avoid U.S. taxes and would collectively owe an estimated $620 billion in U.S. taxes if they repatriated the funds, according to a study released Tuesday. The study by two left-leaning nonprofit groups found that nearly three-quarters of the firms of the Fortune 500 list of biggest American companies by gross revenue operate tax haven subsidies in countries like Bermuda, Ireland, Luxembourg, Netherlands. Citizens for Tax Justice and the U.S. Public Interest Research Education Fund use companies' own financial files with the Securities and Exchange Commission to reach their conclusions. Now, they must have updated this because it had it was a lot bigger on Apple, but technology firm Apple was holding 181.1 billion. Yeah, that number is a little bit more before. And would owe an estimated 59.2 billion in taxes. General Electric 119 billion. Microsoft holding 108.3 billion. Pfizer alone 74 billion with 151 subsidiaries. At least 358 companies, nearly 72% of Fortune 500, operate subsidies in tax haven jurisdictions of 2014. All told, these 358 companies maintain at least 7,622 tax haven subsidies. Fortune 500s hold more than 2.1 trillion in accumulated profits offshore to avoid taxes. So that's the game, folks. I talked about bribery. This is another game. Folks, they're holding 2.1 trillion offshore just so they don't got to pay taxes. And yet they're going to come into your home with an army because you do what? You owe $100, $200, maybe $1,000, maybe $2,000. Hell, let's say a solid $5,000. Great. If you were working and you could afford to put up the money and you didn't have to pay for electric bills that, your lights keep going out every 3 weeks, maybe you could pay all that. And these guys owe 2.1 trillion. Isn't that what would, we could use that to pay down the debt. And it would literally drop 2.1 trillion like that. Yes, I know the problem isn't that it would pay it down and then go back up because we can't stop the spending. The spending is the problem. But they're holding 2.1 trillion offshore, folks. Crazy bad. Crazy bad. So Fortune 500 companies hold more than 2.1 trillion in accumulated profits offshore to avoid taxes. Just stupid.